Hey guys, it's the Charlotte Chatcast. I've got Michael Curtis from Movement Bank, and we're talking about, here's our title, see if you like it. Stop doing that mortgage thing. Do this instead. That's a little clicky-baity. But Michael, after they closed on their home, what should they expect after that?
I know. I feel like this series has blown by, and it's been awesome to do with you, Roger. We've talked about how to prepare. We've talked about pre-approval, talking to a lender. We've talked about going into contract. We've talked about loan programs and construction and everything in between, right?
This is you recapping, right?
This is a recap.
Okay.
This is a recap. Now we're finally in the house, and it's like, oh, we're in the house. We're done. We can start unpacking boxes.
Now wait a minute, Michael.
Yes.
Michael, we've talked all along that hey, the real estate agents help to get you to the closing table. The lender's going to get you closed. It's not like you just moved in with them.
A lot of times it feels like it. It feels like it because moving in doesn't mean we're necessarily done. You still got to get that new mortgage, right? It's going to kickstart with a new payment. So these are the things that are going to be starting as well. And common questions I'll get post closing as well, right? So they're in the house. Where do I send my first payment? How do I pay my mortgage? So these are all things that your lender should be communicating with you as the dust settles and the ink dries on that new deed.
The lender, the attorney here in North Carolina, South Carolina, we close with attorneys, not like New York with lawyers. And that attorney is a lawyer that represents the transaction rather than either of you but they typically have that there, but there's a lot of moving parts at closing day. So I can see why they get confused. So typically now, as we talked about earlier, you are able at Movement Bank, because you're wholesale, you may shop that loan with some other lender, correct? So they may not necessarily make the payment to Movement Bank.
That's exactly right. So it may be with a completely different lender. I'm still their mortgage advisor. I tell folks, I'm your lender for life. I'm going to be walking you through what this looks like in the future as well.
That's how they get you.
That's how they get you. Realtor for life, lender for life. So lender for life. I'm your mortgage advisor for life. And so post-closing, we're still going to help you. I'm going to be working with you on any lender that we might have used based upon your financial needs, right? So whoever we ended up using as your lender, we're going to be able to communicate and still coordinate with. So I won't disappear.
Yeah. So you mentioned, we usually tell people, make sure before your first payment's due. And maybe you can explain why that payment, quote unquote, skips a month. With that arrears thing you all talk about.
Yeah. But
before you make your first payment, you definitely want to check and make sure you're not sending it to Michael Curtis if in fact they've sold it. But how does that work? Why? And it's funny how some of these ads that you hear say, and we'll even make skip your next payment kind of thing. Well, that's just normal. Explain why. It's
normal. Yeah, it's kind of marketing hijinks is what I call it. The way it works with mortgages is that you're paying for the month prior. So you will prepay when you close. So in your closing costs, and your lender should walk you through this as well, depending on when you close in the month, you'll prepay for the interest for that month. And then you'll skip a month, and then your actual payment would be for that previous month. So, what month are we in now? We're let's say we're in April, right? So we close today, would prepay for the remainder of April. Then we would not have a mortgage payment May 1st, but on June 1st, we're paying for living in that house and having that mortgage for May. So that's how that works.
Yeah, it's well said. Now, you use the term financing after closing. What does that mean?
So a lot of people, they have a lot of concerns about how volatile the market is, right? And so the way I try to describe it to people is like, look, if you need a house, buy a house, right? So the best time to start investing is to start investing. Right, same thing here. If you need a house, buy a house. Financing is temporary, right? And so as a lender for life, your mortgage advisor, what we're going to be doing is looking at when does it make sense to refinance as well, especially in the volatile market. We've seen the Fed tinkering, for several months trying to combat inflation. And so let's be clear, they definitely are tinkerers. Tinkering is let's just say that's a minor term for what they're doing. However, once they're done, when we're out of this artificial period, we should have some normalization. Now, what does normalization look like? No idea. But
let me take the consumer. Let me take the consumer. I have a position. For instance, the rates go down, and I remember for years before I met my wife, she'd build a house, and there was one mortgage guy broker. He'd call her every so often and say, "Hey, I can save you $150 a month. Now, well, that sounds attractive, but if she had 25 years left, then now without telling him I want to stay at 25, which is what we did the last time, then I've got another 30 years and then another 30 years. And so I'm a little nervous. I don't want you to be my mortgage broker for life, because I want to get out of debt, which I am. My house is paid off, and I don't, but at some point in life, and that's why we have accountants and financial advisors, that once we've closed on the house, at what point would refinancing make sense versus say, and then explain a HELOC? Do you do those too? Yeah.
So as far as what you're talking about, one thing is I want to get you out of debt as fast as possible. I also love the idea of people being debt free, and so it's actually I'm a financial coach, and we can talk about it in another video. But one thing we work on.
Now, see what he did with me, guys? He just invited himself back to do another video.
That's right. I'll be back, whether Roger likes it or not.
Are you like a Dave Ramsey type guy, or?
That's right. So I'm a financial coach through the Dave Ramsey program, and one thing that we do is pay off debt. That's a big thing, and so refinancing. We start that term of 30 years. So let's say if using the example of your wife, 25 years, we can do a refinance for 25 years.
That's what I did the last time.
It's 17 years left. We're going to refinance you at 17 years left.
Good.
We're not going to just put you in another 30 years, because we want you to make some ground on this too, not just necessarily drop your payment. So there's a lot that goes into that as well.
So why would they choose a refi versus a HELOC, for instance?
So there's an important distinction there, right? So a refinance is a closed line of credit that each payment you're paying this off. You're paying this off. A HELOC is an open line of credit. It's like putting a credit card on your equity in your home. And so a HELOC is an option. Let's say if you've been in a home for a couple of years and you need to remodel it, or if you want to put a pool in the backyard, well, a HELOC could be an option. Now, I know you asked if I do them. I have partners that do them, so I wouldn't necessarily be the one running with it, but I do have external partners that I can connect people with.
All right, good. Well, now the long-awaited telephone number for Michael Curtis with a CTC, clear to close. Movement Bank, great local institution, although the bank is basically, Casey bought a Virginia bank, but basically all here locally. That's right. Phone number twice.
That's right. So I'm Michael Curtis, a mortgage lender with Movement Bank, and my telephone number is 803-389-5256. That again is 803-389-5256.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching the Charlotte Chatcast. And Michael, we appreciate all your help and all your insight, man. Thank you.
Been awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Adios.